My name is Edward Marshall, though to most people in the small town where I live, I'm simply Ed, a quiet old man who tends to his garden, reads the morning paper at the local cafe, and volunteers at the library. People know me as polite, humble, and ordinary, and I like it that way. Few know that I once co-founded a technology company, poured 2 decades of my life into it, and eventually sold it for billions. After my wife passed away, I withdrew from that world. Money couldn't bring her back, and I found no joy in yachts or boardrooms. So I tucked away my past like an old suit and raised my son Daniel to value humility over wealth. When Daniel married Sophia Bennett, I sensed trouble immediately. She was beautiful, sharp, and ambitious, but in her eyes I saw hunger for status, for importance. At their wedding reception, I heard her relatives whispering about me. "Who is he?" one asked. "That's Daniel's father," another replied. "Oh, he looks so ordinary." Later that evening, Sophia looked me in the eye and said, "Daniel told me you live alone in that little house outside town. I hope you don't expect us to rely on you financially. I've worked too hard to marry into nothing." She wanted to wound me, to provoke me. I only smiled and said, "You needn't worry. I've managed fine for myself." As months passed, she rarely visited me. When she did, her eyes swept over my modest home as though calculating its worth or its lack. One evening, Daniel invited me to dinner with her family. Her mother, Margaret, was a woman who wore diamonds heavy enough to bend her neck and a perfume so strong it arrived before she did. She asked what I did for a living. I told her I was retired. "Retired from what?" she pressed. "A little business here and there," I said lightly. Sophia snorted and said loudly, "Don't be modest, mother. There's nothing to tell. He was never anyone important." Her words dropped like a stone in the room. I smiled, though inside I felt a pang, not for myself, but for my son. Margaret, however, wasn't convinced. Later in the evening, she searched my name on her phone. Her eyes widened as she whispered, "Oh my God, you're that Edward Marshall?" The screen showed an old photograph of me, 20 years younger, in front of the company I helped build, with a headline declaring, "Edward Marshall sells tech empire for $2.4 billion. The silence at the table was almost comical. Sophia's fork clattered against her plate. That can't be right," she stammered. Margaret stared at me with reverence.
Sophia, for once, had nothing to say. From that moment, Margaret treated me like royalty.
She invited me to her charity galas, paraded me before her friends, and asked endless questions about my past. Sophia hated it. At one gala, she hissed at her mother, "You're humiliating me! Stop parading him around like some trophy!" Margaret snapped back, "Humiliating you? He's the most important man in this room." Sophia's pride began to crumble. She wanted me erased, forgotten. But the more she tried, the more others praised me. Her desperation grew. At a dinner with her business colleagues, she tried to minimize me, claiming that the internet had exaggerated my role. I looked at her and said calmly, "Is that what you believe, Sophia? That I was just a small investor? No, I built that company from the ground up. But I understand why you'd prefer to minimize it. My past makes you uncomfortable." Her attempt to erase me only made her look small, especially when others in the room corrected her and praised my work. Her pride couldn't withstand the pressure. At another family dinner, she exploded. "Why does everyone act like he's some kind of saint? He abandoned everything years ago. He's just a lonely old man in a small house." The room fell silent. I smiled and said, "Because sometimes greatness is knowing when to walk away. Money can build an empire, but love builds a life. I chose my family over everything else." The table erupted in applause. Sophia's face turned crimson. For once, Margaret looked at her daughter with disgust instead of support. Daniel grew weary of her bitterness. He began visiting me more often, sometimes confessing, "Dad, I don't think this marriage will last. She doesn't love me, she loves what I represent. And when that image crumbles, she resents me." I told him gently, "The wrong person will never see your worth, son. That doesn't mean you're lacking. It means they're blind." Slowly, he stopped clinging to what he thought he had. Sophia's last desperate move came one Sunday afternoon when she appeared at my house uninvited. She wore an expensive dress and forced a smile. "Edward, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. If you introduced me to your contacts, perhaps invested in me, I could prove myself. I'd make you proud." Her ambition was naked. I shook my head. You've spent months telling me I was nobody. You can't now ask that nobody to make you somebody. She flushed, hissed that I would regret refusing her, and stormed out. It was the beginning of the end. Daniel soon asked her for a divorce. She raged, threatened, and cried about her reputation, but her pride was already shattered. Margaret surprisingly sided with Daniel. She's lost her way, she admitted bitterly. The divorce was bitter but swift. Daniel emerged not broken but relieved. I feel like I can breathe again, he told me. I raised a glass of whiskey. To fresh air, I said. News of Sophia trickled back to us. She tried to restart her career in London, but burned bridges quickly. Her arrogance had followed her. She became a whisper, a cautionary tale of wasted potential and pride. Margaret aged overnight, confessing to me once, I raised her to believe wealth was everything. And I regret it every day. For the first time, I believed she meant it. Daniel, free at last, began building a new life. He met Emily, a kind schoolteacher who laughed easily and treated him with respect. When I met her, Daniel said, all true things, with a smile that told me he'd finally found what he deserved. As for me, I remained in my small house, tending to my garden, reading my books, and living as quietly as ever. To most of the town, I was still just Ed, the quiet old man with soil on his hands. But those who truly knew me understood. They knew I had once built an empire, then chosen humility over vanity. And Sophia? She became nothing more than a whispered story at dinner parties, the woman who mocked her father-in-law, only to learn too late who he truly was, and who, in trying to tear him down, destroyed herself instead. My revenge had never been loud. It hadn't needed anger or cruelty. All I did was hold up the mirror and let her own arrogance do the rest. That was the sweetest revenge of all.